Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Let's talk about getting your rating higher. Specifically, I'm going to talk about the 50% threshold. 50% rating is an important rating to reach, and I wanted to share with you, besides the actual compensation aspect, which I'll touch on, but why is 50% a good goal if you are lower than that? Why do you want to hit that threshold? Please hit the thumbs up, subscribe, share with a friend, all that good stuff. I really appreciate it. If you want to support the channel in other ways, please consider being a member. I appreciate all of you members so very much. Thank you. You can do that by going to the home page. You will see the highlighted members and a join button. I do my best to get back to all you members, and that's a really important piece of this is the ability for you guys to support, and I appreciate it. So anyway, let's jump into this. The 50% rating has a bunch of different, we'll call it bells and whistles that kind of tie to it. Some of these things open up earlier, so I'll mention a couple of those. For example, if you're a 10 or a 20%, once you pass that 30% threshold, well, now you can add your dependents and spouse and so forth and actually increase your income. But at the 50% mark, there are some comprehensive benefits that kind of come into play, and I wanted to share those with you and then give a few insights on what you can do to help get yourself to the 50% mark. I'm also going to preface this with moving from, say, a 30 or a 40% to a 50% is typically much easier than trying to move from an 80 to a 90 or a 90 to a 100. It's almost like the higher you go, the harder it is to get there because of the way the VA funny math works. So with that, let's jump further into this. Key benefits at the 50% disability would include at 50% VA disability compensation. Well, first, that's your pay, right? The number one thing that we always think about is what would the pay be? Well, it goes up, approximately $300 or so, a little over 300. For example, if you're at 40% as a veteran alone, if you're at 40, it's $755 per month tax-free. But if you move to the 50%, it would be $1,075 tax-free. So it gets you into that 4-digit compensation, right? So you're getting into the over $1,000 mark. Which is substantial. So if you have a spouse, you're looking at $1,179. If you have dependents, it goes up from there. But you see that you're now into the over $1,000 mark with a spouse, with dependents, and again, tax-free and all that good stuff. Side note, that VA disability compensation is impacted by COLA, the cost of living adjustment, and we're going to be we're kind of in the middle right now of the data that's being collected to calculate COLA for 2025. So the months used are July, August, and September. Here we are in the middle of August, and that information will be coming out in October to give us the COLA calculation. So the next thing, besides the actual compensation pay, would be VA special monthly compensation. Could also be something that would potentially be in there as you're starting to increase your disabilities and so forth. Could be anything from reproductive issues, erectile dysfunction, could be clothing allowance, all kinds of different things there. Another benefit that opens up is Veterans Benefits Banking Program. Again, that's another kind of it's like a little hidden benefit for vets. At some point, I'll dive a little further into the VBBP, the Veterans Benefits Banking Program. It offers banking options to veterans receiving federal payments, which would be disability compensation. No-cost healthcare and prescription medications. This is really important and actually saves you a ton of money for service-connected conditions and more. Travel allowance, obviously reimbursement for your travel to VA medical facilities or VA authorized healthcare facilities for scheduled appointments, of course. And oh, by the way, you're going to get that for all your service-connected conditions anyway, but also your CMP exams can also warrant that travel allowance. So something to keep in the back of your mind there. So depending on what state you are in, and I would love to see comments here, depending on what state you are in, you might qualify for other state benefits such as hunting and fishing, park passes, could be employment, veterans preference for disabled veterans for employment opportunities. There might even be a property tax exemption or educational benefit, in educational benefits for your dependent children or maybe even your spouse, depending on what state you're in. So I would love to see any comments on your state, especially if there's something big like a real estate tax exemption, that type of stuff at a 50% or higher rating. That'd be interesting. Same thing with the automobile registration fee waiver. Typically, when you're looking at all 50 states, that you're going to see the 100% rating is what triggers the ability to get the waiver for your automobile registration as well as a property tax exemption. Another one here is, and this is at any level again, so some of these are just any level, but another one that pops in is the funding fee for mortgage, refinance, that type of stuff. Your funding fee, your VA funding fee, if you're doing a VA loan, is waived if you are a quote-unquote disabled veteran. So that is an important one. Also, another one that opens up at lower levels, 10% rating or whatever, is VRNE. That's Veterans Rehabilitation, and well, they call it. So it used to be called Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment. Now it's Veterans Readiness and Employment. Same acronym, VRNE. VRNE is a super great program that will pay out up to $3,251 per month while you're going through whatever educational program they're sending you to. And, that could be anything. It could be anything from they want to put you into a master's degree program so you can then land a job in whatever that's going to suit you with your interests and skill sets and whatever. Or it could be, hey, look, we need to get you into a different type of work and you're interested in numbers and cars. Well, then there's the Automotive Dealership Institute, which also accepts VRNE students, veterans, as well as folks that are using their post 9/11 GI Bill. And that's a 30-day course that's like a crash course on finance management for automobile dealerships. And then, boom, they help you get a job into that world. So depending on what you need, will get you into that realm with with regard to employment. So VRNE, I really like. Sometimes it's a pain to get into it. That's the problem. You have to have some conversations with the counselor, and the counselor has to buy off on you. So you have to have a 10% rating at least, and then your disability has to inhibit your ability to hold or maintain or have a job. So you need to get retrained. This is usually the route people go. Get retrained into something new to get you a job so you can be gainfully employed. Personally, I filed for VRNE 3 times. The first 2 times I was denied, and the 3rd time I was approved and went through the program. So in any case, let's move on here. I will throw in one last one here that, TDIU, total disability, individual unemployability, typically would take a 60% or 70% or higher rating in order to be approved for it. However, there are some little carve-outs that if you do have a lower rating with some sort of a severe employment kind of barrier due to your service-connected condition, you might still qualify for TDIU, total disability, individual unemployability, and that would pay you out at 100%. So that is something to think about. And I would say that if you do have a service-connected condition that is inhibiting your ability to work, even if you don't hit that 60 or 70% threshold, but you're at 50 and you have something that, or even if you're less, and you have something that is really barring you from holding down a job, apply anyway and let the VA tell you no, right? The answer is always no if you don't ask. Now, let's talk about just a couple ways that you can get there. If you have a lower rating today and you're trying to build up your rating, this will be fairly quick. Remember that the things that you're looking for, they're kind of fall into two buckets here. I guess three. We'll talk about three buckets. You could potentially have other service-connected conditions that maybe you missed and you forgot to file for, or you didn't realize that those could actually be service-connected. So rethink about what you have with regard to proof, evidence of a condition that you might be able to get service-connected. Okay, so one way would be if you don't have, order your service treatment records from your time in service. You can do that with a form SF-180, SF-180. Order your military records, go through them, read all of your treatment records, and see if there's something in there that you could potentially file for. Maybe you missed something. Now, the next thing would be, so that's one bucket, right? Look into that. The next thing would be go through all of your current conditions that you're currently rated for. If you're rated for 3 things, look at those 3 things. Compare those 3 things to the schedule of ratings for your specific condition and make sure that you're rated appropriately. Maybe, for example, you're rated at 10% for migraines, but you meet the criteria for a 30%. Or potentially a 50% rating for migraines, meaning that you are rated lower than what you should be. What do? Then you can file for an increase. So on the kind of the second thing here would be filing for increases. Look at your current conditions, compare it to the schedule of ratings, be able to look at those 2 things and realize whether or not you're rated appropriately. And if you are not rated appropriately and you should be rated higher, then you need to build the evidence around that and file a supplemental claim on that current condition for an increase. The third thing that you want to look at is the potential for secondary conditions. So one thing you can do, sometimes it's hard to, connect the dots, right? Some things are easier than others. Some things are more difficult to figure out if it would be a secondary condition. An easy one would be my bad knee has now caused a bad back problem, right? Or my one bad knee has now caused my other knee to go bad. Those would be secondary conditions. So you can also Google search, and I encourage people to do this. Take your current conditions and Google search secondary conditions to whatever my service-connected condition is. It helps you to open up your mindset a little bit and look to see there might be 5, 6 different things that show up as common conditions that result because of another condition. Do the same thing with any medications that you're taking. And if you have any of those secondary conditions as a result of either a service-connected condition or a medication for a service-connected condition, then you should consider filing for a secondary condition. And if it's a new condition that you're filing for, because it would be a secondary that you aren't currently rated for, you would file just your standard form for that as a secondary condition for your claim. You can do it online. I highly suggest work with an accredited rep. It's a second set of eyes. You know enough information to be dangerous. Work with your doctor. Get all the information you need to be able to file that claim, but then have an accredited representative look through it for you. With that, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you. Have a great one. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.